Two large earthquakes hit northern Venezuela's Caribbean coast this Wednesday, causing fatalities and heavy damage. The sudden seismic activity left many communities struggling to cope with the immediate aftermath. These twin tremors caused a massive humanitarian crisis that is currently unfolding across the region, leaving widespread destruction in its wake. To grasp the full scale of this disaster, you have to study the region's complex seismic history and the patterns of tectonic movement. Conversely, the 206 quakes were shallower, causing much more surface destruction due to the intense energy released near the crust. Shallow quakes destroy countries, just like the 2010 earthquake that devastated Haiti, causing immense loss of life and structural ruin. The 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake was even worse, killing 2,000 plus people through a massive, devastating tsunami. While the 2004 disaster hit the open ocean, Venezuela's current crisis directly strikes densely populated coastal zones, threatening many lives. Disaster response agencies are now prioritizing geological instability in the Americas due to rising seismic risks. Yet, tracking reports indicate a much bigger disaster, with official figures showing over 44,000 people missing, leaving search teams struggling to locate survivors. Specialized Fairfax County and Los Angeles search and rescue teams arrived at the scene to begin emergency operations. A massive 7.5 magnitude quake hitting just 38 seconds after a 7.12 shows how much accumulated tectonic tension just suddenly snapped. 4 million people in Caracas face long-term psychological trauma following the 2018-08-20 quake, struggling with the lasting mental impact of the disaster. Power grid failures across northern provinces left entire cities dark. This blackout makes it harder for crews to find and rescue people trapped under the rubble. When communication networks went dark, families couldn't reach loved ones. This sudden blackout is causing real, widespread panic throughout the coastal regions right now. The destruction has left many without basic necessities, as aid like water filters and food is urgently needed for those affected. Local hospitals are full and running low on surgical supplies. This surge of trauma patients is breaking the current medical infrastructure. Blocked highways cut off the main supply lines for food and emergency rations. This stoppage stops essential resources from reaching the most devastated villages. Engineers are currently inspecting the nation's hydroelectric dams for structural cracks. If these dams break, the resulting floods will destroy entire downstream communities. Closing these schools leaves thousands of children without stable routines. Fixing this broken community connection will take years of dedicated local investment and policy changes. Rising emergency shelter demand is overwhelming nearby inland cities. Local officials now struggle to supply basic bedding and sanitation for the growing number of displaced people. Destroying coastal ports would stop the maritime trade our economy relies on. This shutdown will trigger a long, painful period of hyperinflation across the country. Without heavy machinery in the disaster zones, crews cannot clear debris from residential streets. This critical bottleneck stops emergency vehicles from reaching high-density neighborhoods, delaying life-saving responses. And frequent grid failures are spoiling critical vaccine refrigeration. This sudden loss of temperature control breaks essential immunization programs meant to protect the most vulnerable people in these regions. Heavy vibrations crack several unreinforced masonry buildings. These old walls are still falling, making it dangerous for anyone trying to rescue their belongings. When coastal shops close overnight, local commerce collapses. This loss of income will worsen the current economic struggles facing the working class in these regions. The Caribbean plate boundary is unstable, making the region prone to back-to-back earthquake ruptures. The 3-8-second gap between tremors indicates that the fault line reactivated itself. This timing stopped residents from reaching safety after the first shock. The secondary wave probably collapsed buildings already weakened by the initial impact. Seismologists are checking if the first rupture triggered the second via stress transfer. These events frequently cause much higher death tolls in coastal towns. Because these epicenters are near the shore, local landslides are much more likely. The local coastline is prone to sudden, severe soil liquefaction events. These shifts can bury whole roads and crack the bases of essential bridges. When communication towers went offline, several remote towns lost all contact with the world. Without cellular signals, we cannot measure how much rural areas are actually suffering. Rescuers must use satellite imagery alone to find anyone left alive. Without access to real-time data, emergency response teams cannot deploy their specialized search units effectively during critical operations. Destroying local power substations left entire provinces without any electricity. The outage makes night rescues harder and makes accidents more likely. Dark, debris-filled streets are now dangerous to walk through at night. Broken regional telecom lines are currently crippling local logistics and supply chains. Global aid delivery depends on working digital networks and systems. Broken bridges left survivors stranded in isolated pockets. These disconnected zones cannot call for medical evacuations right now. Broken underground gas lines caused new fires. Firefighters cannot stop these small blazes because the local hydrant systems are currently broken. Low pressure in the city water network stops firefighters from working effectively. Severe damage to the main airport in Caracas could hamper efforts to get aid into the country quickly. Because these cranes cannot move easily, we cannot deploy them for rescues. Destroying local grain silos right now puts the entire region's food supply at risk. Losing these stored reserves means we must quickly buy more food from abroad. This sudden regional energy shortage is actively destabilizing the entire national power grid. This instability might trigger rolling blackouts well outside the earthquake's epicenter. Losing agricultural storage will spike local food prices, making basic staples unaffordable. This scarcity will likely cause widespread malnutrition across the most vulnerable coastal provinces, threatening long-term food security. Grid failure triggers a chain reaction. When electricity cuts out, hospitals lose the power needed for life-saving medical equipment. Broken gas lines threaten nearby buildings. These fires can jump quickly across crowded city streets, destroying entire residential blocks in minutes. Broken water networks prevent basic sanitation in temporary shelters. Without clean water, families face much higher risks of sudden waterborne disease outbreaks. Broken telecom networks stop emergency services from coordinating. This information gap slows down the delivery of critical medical supplies to those in need. Frequent national grid failures threaten long-term economic growth. This energy shortage will likely halt industrial production throughout the country, creating massive disruptions for manufacturing sectors. Subscribe to this channel for more updates on these breaking stories and ongoing global news developments. Tell me what you think about how the international community should actually help during this crisis. We'll post updates once our ground teams confirm the new details on the scene directly.